events, to be on the lookout for, hey, wait a second, there typically are ideas that provide winning chances. And Danya, I grew up probably similar to you. Like, we learned that opposite colored bishops should be a draw. Like, most of the time they're a draw. But I've fought really hard against that initial thought to say, no, let's look for the winning chances, and there goes Duda.
Right. And again, the contributions of Magnus here have to be indicated. He's sort of said stuff like, I don't believe in fortresses. And we take that with a grain of salt, but there's definitely a grain of truth to that, in the sense that, the resources are so abundant, and we realize that now in positions where previously we would have dismissed them, I think, as drawn or as devoid of resources. And we see another Knight Orf, this one a little bit more peaceful. And as we've already pointed out, this time Duda deploys his knight to the traditional d7 square, whereas in game one, he put it on c6.
Right. He played a much more active plan, knight c6, knight a5. Here, now it's Wesley's pawn on a5, bishop on e3, trying to take over the b6 square. That's why the knight on d7 is so important. And it also is important because if this knight were on c6, I'll just show you this very quickly. Let's say knight d5, knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, for instance. There's no knight on c6 getting under attack and with a fork. So the knight on d7 is much better placed.
Right. And h6, again, we see a little bit of posturing here, both sides improving their position. The idea of h6, obviously, remove back rank problems, but also create the g5 square. That might seem insignificant, but there are some positions when a bishop lands on g5. And so Wesley drops his bishop back to f2. Interesting move.
And that, maybe I'm getting aggressive all of a sudden because I'm looking at the score, seeing Wesley's play. Are there ideas in the future for g4, or is that just asking for way too much?
No, I think there are. And actually, that's one thing you can do is lull your opponent to sleep, but knight h5 preempting that, going for the f4 square. So he's fulfilling the same idea as in the beginning, knight a5, knight c4, but on the other side of the board this time, knight h5, knight f4. Wesley saying,
no, you're
not going nowhere.
Right. And bishop g5 could have been an option, but if not for the d6 pawn.
Right.
I was using the bishop move to try to show everybody that this d6 pawn is a huge problem for black, but I guess Wesley figured the c2 pawn is a problem for him, and he wants to free up his knight, but
yep.
I don't like the way this is going for Wesley. Now d5 is on the radar. I have 3 defenders of that square. You don't have enough attackers. And why is this? What? Rook c1 and rook right back to d1. Back. So I guess we have to give him a shout out for when you recognize your mistake and there are no huge consequences. Just say, don't be so proud as to avoid repeating your piece placement. Sometimes it's better to just say, recognize it, admit it, and then fix it.
Definitely. And we see Duda, he's a Knight Orf specialist, as I mentioned previously, but we'll see what he does now. I mean, if you could get d5 in, that would be very good. By the way, he did something similar with knight h5, knight f6. That was certainly not an admission of failure. Remember, he provoked g3. G3 is a very significant and essentially a permanent weakness of the king side, and that's emphasized with knight h7. He's going after g5 and h3 potentially. Wesley can play h4 to stop him, but that's yet another weakness. He does. Maybe knight back to f6. I know that sounds crazy, but you've done your job.
It's funny, Donnie, because I was half joking about this g4 push earlier, understanding how weak the squares would be. And now look what's happening. If the knight goes to f6, will we see a g4 push? I mean, why not?
Knight f6, but the other knight, that knight on h7 is there to sort of supervise the defense. And maybe Duda is preparing d5. Maybe he goes rook d8. Wesley trying to preempt him. He's trying to put a knight on d5. That's why he plays rook c1, so that the c2 pawn is not going to hang.
So can you explain to me? Oh, actually, now I think I get it. So the queen was on c7 earlier, and if he had played rook a c1, there could have been bishop takes b3 and queen takes a5. So with the queen on c6 and the a5 pawn no longer be under attack, he felt now was the time to bring the a rook over because the rook did not need to sit and protect a5. I was about to ask you, why did he play rook d to c1 earlier if he's only going to play rook a c1 later? But it makes a lot of sense now that I'm reflecting.
That's a great explanation. And now maybe queen drops back to e1. I don't know, Duda, is he trying to go after d5 here? Or is he trying to do something on the king side? You know, you mentioned g4, Robert. I'm going to take a page out of your book, and I'm going to say, Duda might want to play g5. And maybe he's holding that knight on h7. He's saving it for a rainy day, and maybe that rainy day has arrived. and he tries to turn it back on white. Bishop takes d5 and g5. I know that sounds crazy, but guess what? White's king side is so weakened that maybe he can get away with it.
You don't have to encourage me. I'm happy to see g5 be played. And the bishop's already in, so why not g5 next? And then why not f5? Let's just push all these.
Do it, g5. Let's go. I think he's going to do it because it's not that he has infinite time. Wesley is saying, I'm not sleeping. I'm going to go c5, and I'm going to break open black's central defenses. His rooks are well positioned to do that. Duda's got 1 moment.
And you're probably right about that. c5 is happening very shortly. And one thing I'll keep in the back of our minds, queen a4. A timely queen a4 could be a big nuisance to white. But for now, I don't think it does that much. Attacks the knight. I'll defend my knight. Good for you. So g5 is what I'm looking at in no small part because you made me. And he's going for e4? Is that what he's going for?
Okay. That makes, yeah, definitely. And that makes sense as well. I did like g5. I'm not entirely sure why, but there was something he didn't like about that. Duda knows the Najdorf and the game of chess a lot better than I do. So I trust his decision-making here entirely. Strikes in the center with e4, as you said, Robert. And he's carving out all of these squares for all of his pieces. This is heating up, but I think black is having all the fun.
I agree. And Magnus Carlsen has shown great skill in pretty much every position, but in particular in these kind of Sicilians, when he pushes e4, sometimes even at the cost of a pawn. For example, this night we're on d7, you play e4, and if it's captured, you bring the knight to e5. You're trying to loosen up white's control over the light squares and then go forward. And that's a big problem for Wesley right now, as Duda is about even on the clock as Wesley sits and thinks about the ramifications of this decision. So Danya, it's looking better and better for JKD as his pieces are coming to life.
Yeah, that's the Najdorf for you. Once these pieces unfurl, there's going to be a very big price to pay. And Wesley regretting the pawn on g3, the pawn on h4. These permanent and long-term weaknesses are in a very big way fueling the fire as he tries to bring, life-saving resources to the game. Rook to c4. He's trying to get this e4 pawn out of there on his own terms, bringing the bishop from e2 to f3, so that it lends support to these incredibly weak squares on e4 and g4. Will Duda preserve the tension, play something like queen f5? Will he add more heat to the fire? Maybe bishop f8, essentially involving that rook on e8 in the attack. There's a lot of options here. He also doesn't have a lot of time. What does he do? And
this rook c4, not only does it put pressure on e4 and help out the king side, eventually I was going to say there could be a rook b4 type of maneuver. What is
going on here? E3. Watch E3 be played.
I was about to say it. I'm so happy you said that because my first instinct, because I was thinking about E3 even before d takes c5, I was like, can I give up the pawn, open up the e file? And now the point is that your bishop takes e3. Let's bring up the analysis board here. Is that there is a hanging bishop on the square. So bishop e3, I can even play queen takes d6.
Queen d6, exactly what I was thinking too.
Bishop takes, and your bishop is hanging just like mine is.
So we're on the same page, partner.
Yes, indeed. I was really happy you said that because I was thinking about it. You said it. We're doing well, Danya. Come on, man. Look at that. That's supportive teamwork.
That is sport. I mean, I'm choking up here. You know who else is on the same page? JKD.
Well, he's also leading on the clock in addition to the scoreboard, bishop in addition to the position. So
he decides to take with a bishop.
You could say he's having a good day.
He is having I mean, look, you can just sense the good form, confidence. And you know what's a great indicator of good form? The speed with which we went into that opposite color bishop endgame. A confidence to make critical and responsible decisions is an underestimated metric of good form. No hesitation and accuracy in tactics. This is not looking good for Wesley. Duda has decided to take with a bishop on d6, preserving the queens, which makes sense because the queen on d7 is very well protected. Oh, can he take on c5? Wesley hanging by a thread here.
Right. Bishop takes c5. You can't trade queens first because there's an intermezzo. Bishop takes e3 with check. So after bishop takes c5, the bishop would recapture, it seems. But keeping the queens on the board should be good for black as white's king is a bit looser, right? The pawns on f3, g3, and h4, putting the king in an airy spot.
Bishop g3 here is interesting, by the way.
Yeah.
And rook c4.
Okay. So bishop takes g3. The points if knight takes, there's queen takes here. Knight takes e4 first is probably...
There's a whole smorgasbord of options here, and no, this is collapsing for Wesley. Yeah, simply knight e4, queen e4. Oh,
that's the best choice. But queen
rook
e3.
c2.
Oh, look at you.
Queen e3, king h2, though. It's not over. Look at that king. That might have been a little hasty.
Gosh.
Where is the queen f2, rook e2, though?
And,
Queen f2, rook e2,
but
queen
there's
c8.
Yeah, queen c8, queen f5. Is that?
Oh, there's some beautiful tactics there. Queen f5, g6.
Let's bring up the analysis board real quick. That way we can show it's a queen f2 here, rook e2. If check, king h7, and if queen f5, you're saying g6. But I can take, and my king gets this square to run away to.
No, but you go knight e8 after queen c8, I think. Nope, he hasn't done it. We'd have to take a look. The eval
we'll
will tell us all.
We'll look
but
at
now
it
up on down. But look at Wesley activating his rook. Unbelievable comeback, Robert. He might even be not worse here.
And g5 play, but that gives the f5 square. That could be critical, as if a knight could land an outpost and the king could get in some trouble.
Incredible stuff. He's showing why he won the U.S. championship. This man is not sleeping. Duda may be in great form, but Wesley So is a monster, and now he's overtaken the initiative. 4 seconds for Duda. He might go g4 now, Wesley.
Knight takes f7?
Cement that square.
And knight f7 also threatens knight e5 as well as knight h8.
Very good call.
So
one of those two moves.
I didn't like taking first.
Huh.
g4?
Ooh, that would have threatened some stuff too.
Okay, well now this looks like it is probably going to peter out, but watch out. Don't allow knight e4.
Lots of tactics. G4 maybe.
Oh,
but Wesley, now knight f5.
I actually don't like this at all for black. It's looking pretty bad. In 1.9 seconds, by the way.
Yep.
How does? Oh, okay. The time is going on. How could you 0.7 seconds? It was going up to 1.7. And great defense with no timer's clock. Knight back. You gotta go.
Knight c3. Oh, knight d2.
Knight d4.
Look at this.
King f2. He's getting out.
Rook d3. But rook d3 attacking the. No, he goes there.
Okay.
Rook e6. He's gonna move.
It's like so. I want to.
It's so close.
Black is holding on for dear life.
But look at Duda. This hither and there. Their knight to d3 is going to come, and knight f4, and he's going to establish his knight there. He's got a pre-move.
The king can go to attack f4, and there's knight takes g5 ideas. If the knight goes f4, so to be careful about that. Knight f4, knight takes g5.
Passing the hot potato around, and white continues to try to find chances. But look at Duda. Knight d5. He's not missing any forks.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad. Knight c3. Knight c3. That's it.
King e6. But is the pawn ending winning? f4.
Yes, it is. F4.
Beautiful.
Game over.
f5. And these are the margins with which you have to beat these guys. Are we sure it's over? The king has to go to b3. This is a very famous idea. Overextending the opposition. King could not have gone to b5.
And now it's winning because king up.
Incredible.
And the black king, has to make a choice at some point, and it's running out of options. And
king
c5, it's over. King d6. You have made inroads.
F6. Now you king f5. You're going to pick off the other pawn, or king e6.
Oh my gosh.
What a win. What a win by Wesley.
We are obviously